morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are very excited about our program. We're looking at a leadership simulation that goes to infinity and beyond. My name is Lydia Sani, and I am one of the co-founders of Redwood Performance Group. And we hold a series of monthly webinars. And today, joining us is Dawn Jones, and we've worked with Dawn for many, many years. When we used to do a lot of live events, Dawn was always into live simulations and did a fabulous job for many of our big clients at the time. And we are still in touch with him today. So he has something very exciting and new. And we thought this would be a great forum for him to share it with you. So Dawn basically has come up with a whole simulation on leadership, and it talks about going human in a digital world. And great accolades, as you saw from our write-up in the webinar write-up. And I'll turn it over to Don now to introduce himself and talk about this exciting new venture he's on.
Thanks so much, Lydia. It's a pleasure to reconnect with you, Rob, and Les, and everybody here at Redwood. It's a real treat. My name's Don Jones. Our company is Experience It. I co-founded Experience It 31 years ago, October 22nd, with Margot Clayton, my business partner. So it's a pleasure to be here to talk about our most ambitious project yet, Infinity, and about the theme of that project, which really I'm dedicating the next 10 years of my life to, around going human in the digital world. Really, that's an evolving manifesto, and I would love to hear from all you brilliant people that are online to understand more about how we should evolve that manifesto and where we should go with it. So I'll do a quick introduction to our company and then dive into a little bit of Infinity. And let's see. So this is our company. We've been around for 31 years. As I've said, we develop in-class simulations. That's where we came across Lydia and company so many years ago, digital experiences for the last 8 or 9 years, and also back on the job, transferred application projects, which are part of the Infinity, a very important part of the Infinity experience that we're going to look at today. This is some of our clients and backgrounds, just 4 continents, 23 countries with our in-class simulations, 78 countries digitally now at over 90 universities and translated into 12 languages now. I think it's well beyond 140,000 participants now, but that's close enough. Who we are, what we do, and what's important to us. As I said, we're going to focus on this today around Infinity, and I'm going to ask for your help in terms of where digital transformations are going, how leadership is being impacted, how we're trying to impact leadership with this 3-episode Infinity digital simulation, and about how going human is something that's sometimes being left out of the equation, according to some of the research that we're going to share. So we won't spend too much time on the people-to-people side, our simulations in classroom. We'll go right to the digital side for this discussion. So the way we think about our simulated worlds is that these are rich, story-driven, immersive worlds to change behaviors. So that's really the niche that we're in. There's a lot of kinds of simulations out there. As you all know, when I started this business so long ago, simulation was kind of a new word, and there wasn't really a lot of sophistication around it. But as you now know, most of you all are probably very sophisticated around the kinds of simulations that are in the world today, and our particular niche is around rich, immersive, story-driven simulated worlds around behaviors. So that's a particular niche that that we specialize in, that we work very hard to build. So these are single-player or multiplayer digital leadership simulations. We're going to look at Infinity, which is a single player today. And we built it as a single player so it could be massively scalable. So if they wanted to do 10,000 leaders around the world tomorrow morning, we could say, well, would you like this afternoon? Now, we're not quite there yet, but 6 months from now, we will be. But you'll see the platform that's enabling that, and the experience on top of that platform that is where we're at. So this is just a little history of our digital experience. We started with a patient empathy app that was really cool for Bayer. Then the next much bigger project was Sire, which kind of proved our capability to ourselves, really, around this. Sire was a single-player game that's at 90 universities in version 2.5 now around the world. And then we did some other things for Cisco and their salespeople. ABB Sales Simulator is a multiplayer game running out to 15,000 salespeople around the world. So 5 people can play it at a time online as a team from any cities. Then the People Development Factory, which was our minimal, not viable, but our minimal viable product, is a way to think about it around infinity. So we've been at this design for 3.5 or 4 years, depending how you look at it. But that's the first thing we produced as fast as we could to get it out into testing for our clients. And we'll show a little bit about that. And then Voyage to the Future is an interesting application, which was both around an app that you could play, but it was also collecting information for the organization globally. And it opened up on Daimler Chrysler screens all around the world at the same time. And now we're going to talk about Infinity. So I won't go through these too much. These were some of those experiences that led to the evolution into what this product is. Sometimes our simulations get used in the classroom like this, but that's not really our purpose for them. They're built to be scalable in online multiplayers, but sometimes our clients say, we're going to use them in the classroom. That works fine too. This is the beginning of Infinity. We called it the People Development Factory. And we tested it for 14 months with GE and Mercedes, 2 of our global partners that were amazingly helpful in the evolution of this product. And they've been great partners all the way along. So our most ambitious project yet. It's a little bit crazy that we took on this initiative literally 3.5 years ago. It might even be 4. But we wanted to take everything we learned and get off a client timeline in terms of the development process, put the money into it ourselves so that we could build what we thought might kind of push the genre forward a little bit. And in our niche, we were trying hard to do that. Our client, Natalie Siebold at GE, said the promise of digital and blended learning is finally here. We're glad she felt that way. That was during version 1 in the testing. This product involved a 20-person plus team, not full-time for those 4 years, but these are the kinds of people that have been involved. Research team, design and development team, artists, pedagogy experts, animators, modelers, server architects, artists, creative writers. Speaking of creative writers, we took 6 people for 6 months. Margot opened up a pop-up shop on the other side of Toronto, away from our big corporate head office, which we're not that big. But we wanted people to get away from the hecticness of the day-to-day business and just be able to concentrate on the character arcs of the characters in the story. Now, we believe so much that if the future of business, if the future of leadership is about humans, then you have to work incredibly hard around the backstories of the characters to make them real and human and fallible and with ambitions that go beyond your company, with problems, personal and professional, with amazing talents that may or may not be discovered. So 6 months, 6 writers, totally dedicated on that period. We don't know anybody in the learning business who does that. I'm not even saying you should. It's a little bit crazy, but I'm a novelist and a writer on the side. I believe in story, but if you're going to do it, you really have to commit to doing it well. And then we had our 14-month partnership with GE and Mercedes, which we couldn't have done this without them. 2018, before we launched, we were finalists with UNICEF, Facebook, and MasterCard. Feel pretty good about that for Experience It, little company in the Toronto beaches, for what we've produced here and what we're going to show today. We think it has a chance to nudge learning further. In our niche, there's all kinds of people doing great stuff all over the place that we admire, that we work with, that we compete with. There's a lot of stuff out there that we admire. We think this has its own niche, and it's an important one, and we think we're trying to do it as well as we can. This is a quote from a person I know pretty well. I shaved his face in the mirror this morning, as a matter of fact. And but anyway, it's what I believe. We're at an incredibly exciting time. I mean, in the learning industry right now, I believe we're right at an amazing time. I remember years ago, I was sitting in Palo Alto on Sand Hill Road, where we had an apartment, and a client had moved my family and I down there for 10 months to do a simulation design. And I was right at the heart at the time of the world was changing. It was a revolution, and that was the epicenter of it. And I was in Sand Hill Road. I didn't even care, wasn't even aware of it, because my daughter was 2. I was designing a simulation. The world was changing in the coffee shop right behind me. I ran into Steve Jobs in the small in a small grocery store. You know, he had in the summer, he was wearing a black mock neck thing, pushing a golf cart. I didn't even care that the world was changing there, because I was focused on my stuff. And now I'm in the learning business, and most people don't care or aren't aware that we're fundamentally changing the learning business. Not we as in experience it, but as a community. The learning business is changing in a very exciting, unbelievable way. And it's no longer that the technology will get in the way, it's design. It's about design. The technology is good enough. It's not about the pipeline to fill up a pipeline with MOOCs. It's about doing incredible designs with not bleeding edge technology, but technology that's accessible and available, but creating deep, rich story using deep data as well, and really thinking about how do we apply this to learning and then transfer it. Importantly, how do we help people back on the job? And our mission, I was kind of hooked on Breaking Bad when it first came out. And I'm trying to get hooked on something else, and I haven't been able to, unfortunately. That gives away my age. But Breaking Bad was amazing. You know, I used to drop my daughters off at skating and go in front of a Starbucks and get online and go, oh my God, I got to get the next episode. Well, I want learning, and we want learning to be equal to that. You go, I've got an hour this evening. Do I do this incredibly exciting game because I'm right in the middle of saving this company and saving the world, or do I watch Breaking Bad? And I want you to be able to choose legitimately learning. Learning is so exciting, and so the designs of learning should equal that. It's the most important, one of the most important things. The reason you're where you are right now in your role, that I'm where I am in my role, is because somewhere along the line, we've learned enough to get here. So this is our project that's evolved. It's called Infinity, the People Leadership Programs. Actually, these are older slides, called the People Leadership Experience. We launch it with its first client, January 1st, and it launches with 3 episodes, a complete digital mentor program that we're going to talk about, and then a coaching app that takes all of that data and then helps you back in the workplace for 60 days to nudge your behavior in the direction of the goals that you set for yourself. And we all know, you all know how challenging behavior change is in our industry. We're not saying this is the holy grail of behavior change. What we are saying is that we've got a tremendous opportunity with the technology we have right now to help people and support them as they change behavior back in the workplace.
This is fascinating.
Thank you, Lydia. And please jump in, ask questions. What I'm going to talk about today a little bit is the fact that Infinity is really important to us, and one of the underlying messages of Infinity is going human in a digital world. So if you have any questions, please jump in anytime during this presentation. I love talking about it, but people have a tendency to kick me under the table and say, stop talking about it. And so you're not here, but please jump on the screen and say, here's a question I have for you, Dawn. Or if you have ideas about where going human in a digital world can take us, help me evolve that manifesto. I have an article coming out this month in Dialogue, which is Duke's Corporate Education Global Magazine, called Going Human in a Digital Age. That will be transferred into a book in the new year, and I'll be writing that. And I'm looking for your ideas about the humanity in the workplace and how it makes a difference. So please jump in, please help me evolve that, as I'd love to include your ideas as we go forward. So Infinity. We designed this to have these attributes: engaging, immersive, story-rich, we've talked about that, to provide individual feedback, to support behavior change, transfer and application back on the job, and some tools for sustainment, including organizational analytics that allow people to see in a aggregated, anonymous way what's happening out there in the field. You just sent this out to 1,000 leaders globally. What's happening with it? How are people using it? What are the areas that they're getting stuck in? What are the areas that they're making great progress in? How are they reporting their behavior change for themselves and the team inside the application back on the job? So all of those things are part of the entire bundled package that we call Infinity.
So it's all being tracked as you go.
It's all being tracked, and anything that is tracked. And one of the things we, are very careful around is we're very careful around making sure that people understand that it's not an assessment. And here you're seeing what is the first prototype, the early prototype of Infinity, just to give you a sense of the evolution of this thing. When we first created this is what went out to GE and Mercedes to help us test it. Some of the characters were developed, their backgrounds, backstories, and Infinity looked a lot like this. And it's evolved a long way since that time. In fact, this whole mechanism that we sent out about 2.5 years ago, something like that, is now one very small part of Infinity. It was the entire game. When we sent it out, we got some feedback, we learned from that feedback, and then this became one very small screen. You might go down to this level of the company twice during an episode, if that at all, but it's evolved a long way. That's Laura Taylor, by the way, and I'm going to introduce you to Laura Taylor, but first I'm going to introduce you to I'm going to put a video up, which is on our website. And that video actually is about 3.5-4 minutes long. And what it'll do is it will explain Infinity better than I do. But please don't hesitate to ask questions during that time. And I'll pull that up right now. I'll just find it on my screen. Here we go. And I'll put this up. Sounds on.
Leadership is the ultimate difference maker.
Sit back, relax.
Leaders align cultures and drive performance. They create adaptive, high-performance teams and develop talent. They build connections, work across boundaries, and leverage technology. Leaders are the glue that hold your organization together. But if you care about developing leaders, you're probably facing growing demand and rising costs, as it gets harder to take leaders away from their teams. If this is you, then you believe in the power of leaders, just like us at Experience It. We have developed a breakthrough solution for leadership development people. Meet Infinity, a new kind of leadership development program that lets you scale learning rapidly, support lasting behavior change, and generate analytics, all with an extraordinary level of learner engagement. Unlike traditionally isolated classroom events, Infinity is a seamlessly integrated, completely virtual or blended programs with built-in rich feedback, learning transfer support, and impact measurements. Finally, you don't have to sacrifice the richness of truly extraordinary leadership development in order to scale learning. To make Infinity as powerful and real as possible, we needed to create a whole new way for leaders to experience learning. Traditional training can sometimes be passive and unengaging. We worked extraordinarily hard to create 3 story-driven, immersive, interactive, and engaging episodes, each increasing in leadership challenge and sophistication. It's difficult and expensive for leaders to spend days away from their teams. Infinity is accessible anywhere in the world, any time of day or night, on multiple platforms. Each leader can stop and start the immersive simulation and decide when and how to fit learning into their schedule. Each of the 3 episodes is separated across a 3-month program. In between the Infinity coaching app constructs individually customized bi-weekly check-ins that nudge behavior change and curate organizational analytic reports. Learning can sometimes feel like an obligation. Infinity feels like a gift. Infinity is an exciting and fully immersive leadership drama set within a realistic, evolving business setting. The complex characters and the world itself are experienced through an incredibly beautiful user experience. Your leaders will simply love their learning. Traditional learning provides surprisingly little individual learner feedback or organizational analytics. We created our proprietary digital mentor technology to change that. The digital mentor takes feedback and analytics to the next level. At the completion of each episode, deep behavioral feedback is provided for each leader based on their individual choices and actions, based on 24 leadership competencies, 8 leadership behaviors, and 4 learning pillars. Building a high-performance team, creating an adaptive and innovative culture, increasing contextual intelligence, and optimizing the human-digital partnership. Your leaders have never experienced anything like Infinity. As stated by one of our global clients, the promise of digital learning has finally arrived.
Terrific. Please don't hesitate to jump in and ask any questions you want about that after that overview, because I think that does a better job in 4 minutes of explaining this sometimes than I can in an hour. But it's a pleasure to kind of take that further with your questions in the direction that's helpful for you. So let's go back to our main screen and we'll take a look at this. As that video talked about, we really designed Infinity to try to solve problems. We wanted to make this scalable and sustainable, but with a very high quality program. And I think that's been one of the missing links, is just people spending a huge amount of time on an individual program. And we think it's a part of the future of learning, we believe, is people spending a lot of time on individual programs, no different than Breaking Bad has a large team, a little more research, but maybe a little more budget than we have, but spending a lot of time to create an incredibly immersive program for them. So scalable and sustainable. We want it to be self-directed. Our client that we're launching with for about 250 leaders is facilitating the program by having our coaches online with them between the 3 episodes. That's not necessarily the way we planned it. We love it that they're using that and they're bringing cohorts together to talk about it and debrief it. The game itself provides real-time custom feedback with the digital mentor, but then with the coaching app as well, and then creates organizational analytics, as we've talked about.
So Don, Christine is asking, and would this reside on the client's LMS, or is this an external platform?
It's an external platform. We've talked to people about wanting it to reside on their LMS. We're open to that, and it really depends on the client. But right now, we have it as an external. So the client we're launching with is using it externally, and we're working with their security people to make sure that's, appropriately able to be downloaded and used.
And it would probably depend on their LMS as well, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're open to either.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so the 4 pillars that they talked about building these were through our testing and research, were the areas that people wanted us to focus on in the long term. The first 2, building a high performance team, creating an adaptive, innovative culture. Increasing contextual intelligence is papers we've published in the past. It's incredibly important to our clients in terms of people being able to see beyond their role, beyond their silo, beyond their organization. How do they fit into the broader context of the world today and as it changes? And then optimizing the human digital partnership is what we are writing about right now. How do leaders take their teams into an increasingly digital world and at the same time And the research shows how do they build up the humanity of their team, not minimize it through digital. We know digital is going to be massive. It will eliminate some jobs in the workplace, but over the long run, a lot of new jobs are going to be opening up, much higher quality jobs requiring more creative skills, and importantly for leaders, requiring employees that are fully engaged in their job, fully engaged and aligned in their job. And right now we know, according to research from McKinsey, Korn Ferry, and others, that about 22% of people in the workplace are engaged with their job. That's not
acceptable.
That's not acceptable.
Right.
It's not acceptable for them and for their lifetime, and not acceptable for the organizations to survive in a changing workplace. So we have to find ways as a community of learners to help leaders to get their people more engaged.
So we have two questions actually from Prabha.
Great.
And one is, what level of leaders is it targeted towards? And the other is, does the coaching app have a human coaching component, or is it completely digital?
Oh, great. So we're filling it out in terms of, we launch January 1st, and we've tested it out for 14 months at GE and Mercedes. So the people that went through that were, some people had billion-dollar responsibilities underneath them. Some people were frontline supervisors. So it wasn't the C-suite in either of those companies, but it was everything underneath. So we found we got a great reaction to that. Because the feedback is customized, it's going to give people different feedback depending on their behavior patterns. But so far we found it was applicable to all of those, that broader range. And the second question, Lydia?
Well, you're saying the feedback was customized. What do you mean by that? Was it a human, or is that a digital coaching?
So it's two things. So first of all, it's digital. So there's two digital components to how the algorithms, the deep algorithms inside Infinity and the coaching app work. So it's tracking all of your behaviors and giving you feedback. And I'll show you the things we give feedback on in a moment, but they're giving you deep feedback on your behaviors. Again, we're very careful about the way we position this. It's not an assessment. You're smarter than we are, is the way we put it to the leaders going through our program, about their life, about their world. However, what digital can do better than the classroom, and we're in the classroom and we love the classroom, but one of the things digital can do that's better than the classroom is track everybody's individual behaviors, all of your behaviors, and give you windows to look at your behavior patterns underneath 4 pillars, 8 competencies, and 24 behaviors. And we're going to show what those are. So that part is digital and is completely scalable tomorrow. And then our client that we're launching for January 1st has asked us to have our coaches go online with them to talk to them in cohort groups. Now, in the past, we've had coaches talking to individual people in some of our past programs. That's not part of the bundle that we sell with the program, but it's absolutely something we'd love if people can afford to do that and would like to do that. So we have the data. We can sit down with them on the phone and go through individual patterns of their behavior. And just to underline the point I said already, all the data is anonymous to your organization, is aggregated in any kind of dashboard that we create. It's all aggregated data. So great questions. Thank you for those. So speaking of, this is the way we've developed this. These are up top are the 4 key pillars inside this app, inside this experience. And then underneath it in the blue are the 8 competencies that we've worked out and winnowed down to. And then under each of those are 3 behaviors for 24 behaviors. So the app tracks all of those things, from developing talent, enabling adaptability, optimizing digital systems, sensing and shaping under contextual intelligence. Those are all tracked inside this experience. So here's the overview of how the program works. There's 3 episodes. You'll notice the words that we use. We call them episodes on purpose because we're trying to get people to realize learning is exciting, man. It's unbelievable. It's going to be the future of learning. It has to be as exciting as Breaking Bad, and it should be. It's their time. the new generation expects it to be, but even people my age, and I'm quite a bit older. I started the company 31 years ago, but I wasn't 3 when I started it. I was actually 31 at that time. And so even people my age, they really need to be brought into a story. It can't be boring. It can't be terrible. They're used to people spending $100 million on an hour-and-a-half movie they go to see on Friday night and paying $10 for it. They want to be brought into a story. Now, we know we don't have $100 million, but we know we have to compete for their attention, so we're working really hard. So it's a 3-episode series. The first one's called The Assignment. It's where you sign up as a leader in this individual experience. And inside that, yeah. Do I have another question?
You have another question.
Oh, well, let's go there. And then I'll come back to
Christina is asking, are the competencies and skills customizable, or are they standard leadership competencies delivered by Infinity?
That's a really, and we've got that question a lot lately. So for our first client, these are competencies that we winnowed it down to over those 14 months of testing at GE Mercedes. So these are things that are built into Infinity in a very deep way. For our first client, we've customized some of those for them to include there. Now, they've kept things that they don't have, like contextual intelligence, human digital partnerships. None of our clients have those as competencies on the rack. They kept those, they wanted to use them. But we changed a lot of the verbiage around how high performance teams, adaptive cultures, and some of the competencies like developing talent. In some cases, that meant as small as changing the language so that it matched up with their competency maps. In other cases, it can be a bit more. So that depends. It really depends. So good question. Thank you.
Great.
So the first episode is called The Assignment. That's where Laura Taylor hires you to accept an assignment inside her organization. The experience itself and the digital mentor can take anywhere up to 2.5 hours. Now, you stop and start it on the train going to work, or after you put the kids to bed, or fit it into your day the way that it fits. So that was designed to be that way. That's why we went single player for this first scalable leadership simulation. And then you get 4 weeks, 20 days of individual coaching that's been customized to your behavior pattern. So the digital mentor gives you individual feedback in multiple areas that we'll look at. The coaching app then extends that back in the workplace, where we're asking you every single day, no more than a 3 to 5 minute check-in, where we nudge your behaviors according to the patterns that came out in Infinity and according to the goals that you set for yourself back in the workplace. Now, it will provide a nudge every morning, and then it'll track those nudges in terms of how you think you're moving the needle back in the workplace.
So it does send reminders for those procrastinators?
It does. Yes. For instance, you have the chance to set goals for yourself at the beginning, and you have to. You say, in these areas, I'd like to move the needle. Not all the areas, but you can choose the ones where you'd like to apply this back on the job to move the needle. And if you set a pretty challenging goal for yourself, it will say, you've set up, like say 3 days in, you've set a pretty challenging goal for yourself, but you've missed 2 days of practice. You really do need to practice to move the needle on behavior. It's a very tough thing, but you can do it. Mm-hmm. And then practice, we've designed these practice notes to be not something new inside your day. They're too busy for that. We've tried it. We've experimented. What we've done is we've given them we call it a targeted recommendation engine, and rather than a coaching app, because what we're trying to do, we've done the coaching in Infinity long. It takes a while to go through it. It's very deep, very professorial, a lot of angles, a lot of graphs and charts, all that kind of thing. But when you're back on the job, if it's not 3 to 5 minutes, it's not going to exist for you, period. So it's a targeted recommendation engine to say, today, here's what we want you to do. When you're in a meeting, speak less, listen more. Now, it's not just that simple, but it's just about that simple. Daily, as we progress along a pattern that's been curated for you across those 20 days, based on your patterns inside the game. So it's just do that once today. Just do that once today, and tomorrow we'll have a different exercise. But we're going to move the needle against your goal. That's our goal with you, to support you in that. And so that's what the coaching app does. They'll go through that, then they'll go through episode 2. In the middle of that, we do have an online coaching call with the participants at the initiative of our client. and again, the same experience. And then the third episode, which is the Renaissance. And we'll talk a little bit about those. So the first episode is really focused on you as a leader and your team. So getting to know your team. All those characters we spent so much time on, they're complex human beings with strengths and weaknesses, personalities, goals, talents, skills, all of those things. So it's you and your team focused on those. The second episode widens the aperture. It's called the Building on the Assignment. The second episode really is about you and your team inside the organization. How do you work cross-functionally as a leader? How do you make sure your team is widening their view of what their role is and their job is and focused on the mission of the company? And the third episode is where it completely breaks it wide open, where now it's about you and your team, but seen all the way to the outside stakeholders, customers, the broader world. So you're sensitive to your organization's place in the world, and you're managing in those ways, and you're helping your team align in those ways. So it becomes increasingly sophisticated. Also, by the third episodes, if you haven't gone very, very far in terms of a human digital partnership, you're probably being blown out of the water in this infinity world. But it's about human first, because all the research says, and a lot of you would know this research already, but according to McKinsey and a lot of other people, and it's in the article I wrote for Duke's magazine, about 67% of digital transformations are failing or underperforming. And why is that? The key reason is that humans aren't being engaged in the right ways in those digital. It isn't digital that's messing up. It's that the way we lead humans in those efforts and involve them and engage them in those efforts is fundamentally flawed and needs to change. So by the third episode, you'll be leading a team that really, you're hopefully leading them in a great way, building up their human skills, and then letting them help in this digital transformation. And by that time, your whole organization is going to change dramatically by year 3. So one of the things I'll do right now is I'll introduce you to the story inside Infinity. And this story is, we do these little cutscenes, which we think are very fun. We hope you think it's fun. Testing said they enjoyed them, but throughout the thing, these cutscenes will interrupt your game. And I'm going to start this one. This is right at the start of the game. And it gives you a little bit of the backstory. I'm going to explain that story in a bit after you see it. But when you download the game, after you're given the introduction and sign in and all that, you're going to get this.
Taylor Enterprises, founded by the legendary local and business mind Frederick Winslow Taylor. At the dawn of the 20th century, Taylor Enterprises drives the global economy. Under his revolutionary systems of efficiency, farmers and tradesmen are transformed into factory workers. They are given reliable, routine functions and better pay. Productivity unparalleled. Profits unmeasured. A dynasty unmatched. But Taylor is criticized for his approach. Strikes begin. A congressional investigation in 1912. Appalling working conditions. Dehumanized people. Micromanaged workers. The Taylor Empire is in decline. Every decade, a new era brings it closer and closer to bankruptcy. The world is changing rapidly. New generations of workers, global businesses, connected networks, and increasingly smart technology. But still many of the labor practices, organizational charts, and legacy systems can be traced back to Frederick Taylor. Leaders are caught in the middle. Laura Taylor is the latest in the Taylor line. Reluctantly, she agrees to take the helm of the last remaining business in the Taylor Empire. She is interviewed by magazines and business channels. She speaks of her great-grandfather, whose unprecedented success shaped global business. But Laura is clear that this came at the cost of employee engagement and innovation. Not so for Laura Taylor. She is betting that people and smart, empowered teams are the new engines of the economy. A culture fostered on relationships, professional growth, employee engagement, and the integration and leveraging of increasingly smart technology. Businesses and experts are skeptical. Is the world ready for the type of company she champions? To many, the last of the great Taylor heirs have come and gone, and Laura Taylor will be the last in this dynasty. In the midst of this, Laura finds Winslow Taylor's journal. hidden in a secret compartment in one of the family's old factories. It hints at her grandfather's plans to find a new and better way to lead. She hopes that if she can find the missing pages, perhaps they will give her a clue to the future of leadership in an increasingly digital age. As Laura Taylor struggles with the weight of her family's legacy, she seeks a moment's solitude. She begins her journey up a local mountainside, and at the top of the mountain, she gains a new perspective. As she looks at the brilliant horizon, Laura tells herself the next great wave of energy release and productivity improvement on this planet will come from how we work together. Women, men, and technology. There are no limitations on what we can achieve. I will call my company Infinity Inc. She begins her search for the best of the best to lead her company's transformation. That search has brought her to you. Welcome to Infinity Inc.
So the backstory behind Infinity Inc. is very important to us, and over time inside the simulation, you're going to get a number of those cutscenes that just sort of come in twice an episode, so 6 in total, and those are going to give you the backstory. And essentially, the backstory is Laura Taylor, the great-great-granddaughter of Frederick Taylor, has a different vision for business. Yes, it's about today's machines, as it was in her grandfather's days, but not first. We can't leverage those great machines, digital, unless we leverage humans first. The best chess on the planet right now is not being played by computers, and it's not being played by humans. The best chess on the planet is actually being played of teams of humans against either the best, along with a reasonable chess computer, can beat the best computer on the planet, and it can beat the best grandmasters. That's like our workplace. The best workplaces are going to be where good teams work well together with technology. They will blow away the companies that think digital is first, and they will blow away the companies that don't leverage digital. But it has to be humans first, because you need humans engaged and aligned. That's Laura's vision, and she's hired you to run her most important team. So in this screen, you're seeing the team, which is Dahe, James, Luke, Heather, Adriana. Unfortunately, James retires in episode 1. You've got to replace him. That's a drag, because he's your most experienced, very loyal person. Unfortunately, you're losing him. You take the job with Laura, moved across the country to do it. You find out the company's in much worse shape than she advertised. And you have to have a conversation with your boss, a real conversation with her during the game to start, because you have to build a partnership with her. But she lets you know they were forcing her to invest the company pensions back in the business. She wouldn't do it, so she invested all her own money. So you bond with Laura a bit, but she's still your boss, and she's a hard boss. A great lady, but she's a driving boss. So if you look on that screen right now, up above, what you see are the 3 areas that Laura will hold you accountable for: culture, customer, and finances. The engagement scores are incredibly low inside Infinity. The customers are fleeing your products, which is an energy product called the SET, Sustainable Energy Technology, and your finances, you're just about bankrupt. So you've got a lot. You're managing her most important team, and you've got to help her prove this model before they close her down. She's invested her own money in that. On the left-hand side, these chevrons will put your team away if you don't want to look at them right now, until they want to have conversations with you. They'll pop out a conversation module, will pop out above that, and you can avoid that conversation, or you can talk to them. Underneath them, you see a bar that shows their engagement score, and down here is the HR department. So if we move over to the other side, that chevron brings out the 5 departments that those people manage. Inside those departments, you get to make a lot of decisions inside the game. The only way you can really make those decisions is to really listen to your employees, to work with them, to understand Laura's vision, and to try to execute on that with all of the information coming in. Unfortunately for you, there's too much information coming in. This is where your digital mentor and your coaching app are housed. These are email, voicemail, analytics, reports, notes that unfortunately for you, you'll have too many emails, way too many voicemails. You can listen to the voicemails, or you can read them. This is Laura's investor presentation. It's her vision for the company, her business plan, all of those things. And this is just a helpful, anytime you're stuck, you can just do something like this. There's complete videos to show you how to use the game, how to come into it. This is your assistant, Madeline, that reminds you of certain tasks, because there's so much going on. You'd be wise to play this with a notepad beside the computer as you play it. It's complex, it's fun, it's engaging, it's frustrating, and it should be, and it will challenge you. But your assistant Madeline is there to keep track of some important things and remind you of key dates. Like you've got to make a product decision by Q3. You've got to reallocate budget. There's office email, voicemail. There's conversation metrics in this. They're branching tree, but a very, very large number of decisions and places to go. You can avoid tough conversations. You can go after them. This is an example of a screen inside an operating department. And what we've done in these screens, we've actually created mini simulations for you. You can go into those screens and you can test different decisions about. You might have heard conflicting information from Dahe in supplies, James in operations. Adriana's very opinionated. She's got her own opinion on where we need to go. But you can run mini simulations in departments to kind of test things before you approve those decisions. So yeah, sorry. Please, Lydia.
Prabha's asking, let's say over a period of 3 months, what's the overall time commitment to go through the learning and complete all the challenges?
Great. So each episode is about including the digital mentor, which is the deep feedback, like debriefing process. That takes about 2.5 hours per episode. Then once that's over, you get 20 days of nudges. Each of those nudges are 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes max every morning.
Every day.
Every day for 20 days, and made to fit into your day. And in testing, we found that that's all that people can handle in terms of helping them support their behavior change. So as I said, Lydia, it's a targeted recommendation engine so that it's not a lengthy debrief with someone like me talking forever about it. It's just here's something to do today that will move the needle on your behavior. Research says those nudges are what does move behavior change. And we're going to collect some data from you every Friday to see, are we moving the needle together and where can we help some more?
Great.
Pleasure. So these are different operations screens. Here's a screen. You can go into any of your characters and find out, hey, is James engaged right now? That's a narrative. Fred James is currently pleased with his job, but there's obviously a lot of underlying scores around that in terms of how he's engaged, how far he's engaged. He has some personal goals. You'd be wise to read about those. This is a bit about his bio, some traits and interests. The 3 buttons down at the bottom show skills and talents. Those are, I don't have time to go into all the screens here, but those are incredibly important screens to say, what skills has James been trained in? And what talents does he bring to the job? Or importantly, if you've read Buckingham Kaufman's book, First Break All the Rules, which obviously was a seminal book years ago, we still love it, but it's about helping James uncover his own talents and then about growing those talents and aligning it over the 3 episodes. James won't have a chance to do that. He's got a grandson and he's retiring. He's looking forward to that. But his replacement and all the other characters would appreciate if you could help them discover their talent and then align them, give them assignments that leverage those talents. This is analytics where you can go anytime to get all kinds of different analytics about your leadership score. How are you doing on the major metrics? But how are each of the departments doing on their metrics and their goals? How are individuals doing in terms of engagement, alignment, the skills they're developing, and the talents they're discovering?
So any individual can go and see their own analytics, and then could their manager see their whole team's analytics?
We're not giving access to that right now. We're saying it's anonymous. It's a playground, a safe playground to get different viewpoints on your own leadership. We will give aggregated data to management, and you'll see your score against your cohort score. So I, Don Jones, would know my score against my cohort and against, as we move down the road, the whole Infinity community. So you'll see all that, but it doesn't go to your manager right now. There might be cases where some companies say we'd like to use it in this way, and as long as we're being upfront with participants, but we don't want anybody to think this is an evaluation tool. It's not. It's a support tool to give them windows on their behavior. So let me see if I can click through the digital mentor because of our time frame. And before I forget, thank you so much, Lydia and Rob, and Les for setting this up. I mean, it's a real treat, so thank you for doing that. It's a lot of work on your part, and I don't take that for granted, so thank you. You have finances, of course, the finances are important, the customer scores. The digital mentor is about a 30 to 40 minute feedback session. Some people can take as long as an hour in there if they want to, because it's very deep, very rich. Again, not assessment, but to give you windows to see the patterns of behavior that are emergent. You actually have one-on-one conversations with your team. They're not always right, by the way, when they give you feedback. They're human. And unfortunately
True.
for you, they're human. Don't do everything they tell you to do, but listen to them all. You can avoid the tough conversations inside those conversations, but if you do, you're going to get feedback on that in the next episode from the digital mentor saying, you had a chance to really learn about this, and you directed the conversation there. Then it's Laura's performance report. She does have you performed? Are we out of bankruptcy? Have we improved the customer metrics? Have we improved our culture scores? But she introduces a new one called the neural net that I won't explain right now. I don't have time for it, but it's very cool, and it's very much about the future of business, we think, and our clients are saying. Integrated problem analysis is where it's a professorial report to say there was 3 major problems. Did you view them in an isolated way and try to solve them that way? If you did, you probably sub-optimized them. The only way to really sub-optimize the whole is to view those 3 problems as an integrated whole with balances between the 2, as any kind of owner of a business does, or a leader that sees the entire business and the effect of the business. And then the 4-pillar gap analysis, which is the richest part of this, which gives you deep feedback in spider diagrams and explanations and continues and considers. Why don't you continue doing this in the next episode? Because the patterns are really positive. Or why don't you consider changing a couple of these behaviors, experimenting in the next episode, or back on the job at the coaching app, consider experimenting with these. This is what the digital mentor looks like. You can go into any of the areas. And then back on the job is the coaching app that we talked about. And this is really where the 4-pillar gap analysis transfers to your mobile device. Give those targeted recommendations every morning for 3 to 5 minutes to say, let's move the needle. Practice makes perfect. If you're an athlete, I used to work in the Olympic sports 31 years ago, you practice. If you're a violinist, you practice. Leaders don't get the chance to practice enough. And we're saying leadership, yes, some people are great at leadership naturally, but practice really can improve your leadership skills and can leverage your leadership talents. So it's 20 days after each episode of those targeted recommendations that can help move the needle. And then we collect the organizational analytics for you as a participant to compare yourself to, and for the organization to see in an aggregated, anonymous way. So I'm going to kind of close there and see where we're questions.
A question for you is, so how do you know what the improvement is as an organization? Do you benchmark it? Do you do a before and after and look at the differences in improvement?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question, Olivia. Thank you. So at the first part of, as you register for Infinity, and then secondly, when you go into the coaching app, so both of those things, we ask for your assessment. Where do you think you're at on these scales? Just a self-assessment. We know people could say, oh, I'm fantastic, but overall people don't tend to do that. They tend to want to do this. They know it's anonymous. No one's going to see it but themselves. And then every Friday we ask, have you moved the needle in this one particular area at all? Mm-hmm. And then the next Friday, and then after 20 weeks, we do the same. And after 60 weeks, 3 episodes, we do the same. So all that data is collected. And then we compare it to, all kinds of other things, but also to your cohort, to the Infinity community overall. So they set the goals, they set the standards, and then they report.
They self-monitor.
They self-monitor as they go along. Yeah, and we're collecting that data, and we're feeding it back to them. And we're also saying, man, way to go. I mean, you're checking in every day. You're reporting on this. There's a thing that takes 10 or 11 seconds right away. It's 7 quick questions about yesterday. Did you check into the app? Did you apply the practice session? And it's really bang, 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 bang. And people get that quick at it. At the end of it, did you ask for help yesterday from anybody? So did you seek out help from anybody? So it's just this. And then over time, you're going to get some feedback on that saying, actually, a lot of your peers ask for help. Mm-hmm. It's a cool thing, and maybe you can do that. It's an amazingly important thing. So we do that every single day. It's very slick, very fast, and the information that comes out of it is actually really valuable for people to see their tendencies and behaviors against a larger whole. We're not saying you should change everything, but we're trying to move the needle in targeted areas.
Wonderful. Does anyone in the audience have any other questions? We have 5 minutes if you want to ask anything else. Otherwise, Don, this has been really fascinating.
Great.
We wish you the very best, and we'd love to have you back once you have your track record and give us some more case studies on how this is all working out for you. So thank you very much for sharing. We very much appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Lydia, and thank you all for taking the time for this. And as I said at the beginning of this, going human in a digital world is a mission for us. If you have ideas, thoughts, add to the book that I'm writing, anything, go to our website, connect with us, and say, hey, Don, I've got an idea for going human or anything that would help. Our manifesto is evolving. We'd love you to be a part of it. Thanks so much, Lydia, Rob, and Les for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. You've been a great audience, and look forward to your comments. If you're interested in a recording, we have recorded the session, and I can send it along. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.